Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Diann Tesar, former Salem Town Chairman and Village President. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
When did you become interested in local politics? You've been involved for 3 decades.
It was actually 1991. I think it maybe perked a little earlier than that, but that's when I first ran for office in 1991.
What pushed you to run for office?
I think everybody of my friends actually thought, because I was kind of strong-willed and had opinions about how things were running, and so they encouraged me, and basically that's how it started. Yeah.
Right. So did you run against people in general? Was there a seat available? How?
Well, a friend of mine, actually, Shirley Benning, was a supervisor, and she decided to run for chairman, and so there would have been an open position. Plus, there was a regular round of every 2 years election. So I threw my hat in, and I didn't get. I was second in line, and because Shirley Benning became a chairman, then there was another position open, and I was appointed for my first year in 1991.
Okay, and then you ran for office?
And then it just kept going, and so I think, 13, did I decide 13 years I was a supervisor?
14 years. You became town chairman in what year?
2005.
So tell me, you first get on the board, you're appointed. What did you expect? What did you think it would be like?
It was a little different than what I thought it would be like, because I kind of went by the book. They gave me information to read and ordinances and state statutes, kind of things, like just for my role as a supervisor. And so when things came up, I was following that. But it changes because every case that comes to us is different. Like if a house burnt down in the village or in the town at the time, if a house burnt down, they literally, technically couldn't build it where it was. They would, according to some of these planning and zoning and ordinances, so they wouldn't even be able to build in the same blueprint or anything. And you just learn to do it case by case. So that was startling for me. I think everything else I was kind of ready for, the input from people, and yeah, I didn't anticipate my house being, like a glass house anymore, but it wasn't too bad in the beginning. As a supervisor, it wasn't so bad. It was good. We had a great board, and it went well.
What kind of things occurred during those years as a supervisor that you recall? Town changing or? Well,
we were starting more. When I got in, there was like subdivisions, and that was another thing where I didn't expect certain things, because it just depends on the situation. Every situation is different depending on who you're working with. But we started to do the comprehensive plan a little bit after I got on, so that we had some detailed information as to where we wanted our town to go. I keep referring to village because it's a village now. It took me a while to not say town, and I still say town, but at the time, town, we did a comprehensive plan for the year 2025, and that was in the works, and we were always trying to find areas for an industrial park. It was in the back of our minds. We tried different like cluster subdivisions and more clusters where you build all around in the same area, but they have a great area around it. Or if you have a larger lot, that was something we wanted. We wanted to maintain the rural things in Salem. We wanted the feeling to be rural. We didn't want to overdevelop, and so we always had to control that. We encouraged businesses and industrial, but it's in Salem. It's a little bit off I-94, so we didn't get such an influx for that. But local businesses were coming in, and we have a few developments and a lot of different subdivisions over the years.
When you came on the board, was there any particular issue or idea that you wanted to bring to the board? Did you have kind of a platform of your own, or?
I didn't at first, no. I can honestly say I didn't. I just wanted to see what was going on and get involved and see what I could do to help at the time. But no real agendas at the time, Then as time went on, I could see what kind of impact we could make in developing industrial park and developing our highway and fire departments and things of sort.
So you became chairman in 2005.
Yeah.
You ran for the position and was elected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How different was being town chairman than being a supervisor?
It was a lot different. It was a lot different, and I think it equates to being a president now. Also, I don't know. I think the heavy load is on you. You develop. I had great clerks. You develop, the agendas. You talk to people about whether or not I feel that if we could take care of an issue before we put it on the agenda, we try to do that so as not to waste everybody's time. If we could take care of it without being on the agenda, anything the board needed to be aware of, that was something we'd always have to do as a chairman or president. It was a different role. It was a different role. It was a little bit more laid back as a supervisor and now trustee, admittingly, but I didn't feel like I was in the power. I try not to ever, go with that notion at all. I just try to work with people, and you guide them, and you run the meetings and things of sort. So it was different.
So how did you approach your job in general? Being as a supervisor and then as chairman. How did you come to issues? How did you decide issues?
Decide issues as opposed to being a supervisor?
Just what did you bring to an issue to try to deal with it? How did you approach people? How did you approach the issue?
It was, I don't know. I wouldn't say that we had more clout, but in some cases I think people felt that. But I would talk, we got an administrator in 2007. Things really changed then, because he kind of took over a few roles that I was doing, and my hours were a lot different until I had an administrator. An administrator took a lot of the load off of me, but we still had to coordinate and things. It's different because I feel like you have to do more. You have to investigate more. You have to prepare the board for it. I think that was my role in educating anything that would come up, if they hadn't or whatever. I mean, we had a good board. We still have a decent board, but my role was different, and there was a lot more in depth what I had to do, I guess.
So when an issue came up between the town and people, how did you decide how you would vote on an issue?
Well, depending on what it was, but most of the time I tried to put myself in their shoes, and some of them were tough. I did vote against some of the majority because I felt it was right for the people, like sewers, and they didn't want sewers in this other subdivision, and I voted for sewers, and now they're happy they got sewers. They got roads because of sewers, but sometimes it's tough because you're not the know-it-all, and you have to make decisions that sometimes affects people's lives, definitely their pocketbook. And you got to be careful with that, and you got to take in consideration how you would feel if you were in their shoes.
How did you consider yourself as far as fiscally responsible?
I was definitely fiscally responsible. I was pretty well known as the frugal one on the board, I would say. In fact, a lot of times I'd bring stuff up and they would just not even consider it because they just thought I was being that way. But yeah, I try to keep the reins down on purchasing and things of sort. But we had some good employees. I mean, they were good. They didn't take advantage of this or that, or they didn't need a new car or new truck every year. But I was there on the forefront for that, for sure.
Okay, and you were chairman from 2005 until when?
Well, one of my opponents beat me, but we couldn't find it. I couldn't remember what year it was, but it was in the teens, 2000, and she ran against me and won. And then the next year I ran for supervisor underneath her. And then the following year I ran against her and beat her.
Okay, was there particular differences that made you want to have that job again?
I just felt I was doing a good job, and I think people were persuaded differently and maybe they needed a change. But after that she had been in, I think everybody most people were glad that I got back in. And I thought I didn't want to run for supervisor, because I had been chairman, but it was a way to get my feet back in the door and keep involved, and so I did it. And if I didn't win the chairman, then I probably wouldn't have run anymore. But so I was elected, and I continued that until the election of 2023 in April here.
Okay, so the town has gone to becoming a village.
Mm-hmm.
When did the town become a village, and what brought about that drive to become a village?
It was a real strong drive. It was February 14th, easy one to remember, Valentine's Day in 2017. Paddock Lake has a plan. It was 2025 that they're taking so many acres from the village now, and anybody like Hartnell Chevrolet, they built, automatically went into Paddock Lake. Walgreens added on, or Walgreens was built, everything went into Paddock Lake as soon as that had taken place. Like if somebody subdivided their property, they would automatically go into the village. And the threat was going all the way to Antioch at one time.
So they were annexing land
yes,
from the town.
Yes. And they have, because the village is set up to have more power than a town, and they got away with it. It's going to take place. There's some corridors on Highway 50 that are going to be in Paddock Lake in 2025, and right behind McDonald's. But the threat of them annexing part of the village at all was enough for us to start thinking about incorporation.
So was this the entire board? Was there a certain person driving the idea of a village?
At the time, it was kind of dormant for a bit. I think when we got our administrator in, I think that was more of a time when we started pursuing it, because I know him and I had, we had talked to 3 different presidents from Silver Lake, asking their opinion on what they thought to come over. Because Paddock Lake and Silver Lake were always they were a part of Salem years and years ago, and then they disbarred and went to their own areas, and then they were just basically coming back. And I think it was at a good time, and we put it up for a vote, and so it was majority, and we became a village at a really, really reasonable cost. We didn't want to lose any more land.
So Silver Lake was interested in joining Salem?
Yes.
Right. And
It wasn't overnight. It was a few years. And you're always going to have the naysayers, That's just part of the equation everywhere you go. But I think it's worked out great. I really do. I mean, we lowered their taxes I think we provide better services. We got a great fire department, 2 of them. Our highway guys are, I think, the best. So I think it's a benefit to them, and it increases the tax base, so it eventually lowers, you know.
So Silver Lake is already a village.
Mm-hmm.
Salem wants to become a village.
Mm-hmm.
Silver Lake just said, well, sure, we'll just be part of your village. Or
Basically, in
that's how it
layman's
happened?
terms, pretty much, yes,
There
because they
wasn't
have the
any
power.
reluctance or anything like that?
Oh,
by
it was. Like I said, it took us 3 years to convince anybody to look into it further, and then we developed a committee. Mike Ulstrup was on that. He has since passed, like I was saying, and great committee he got together, and they worked hard. They worked over, I'm sure, over a year on this. I mean, it wasn't anything overnight, because you know the DOA has to approve it all, and there's certain. We didn't want to. We wanted all of Salem to be incorporated or none. We didn't want like the area where, let's say, I lived, or the area by the high school or the grade school. We wanted it all or nothing, and we got it, and we didn't have to pay $500,000 like other villages.
Okay, so on February 14th, 2017, became the Village of Salem Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Our board was.
there was no town board.
There was no town board.
Who governed?
Silver Lake Board. They just moved over into the village, into our village hall, and they all ran for office. They had to run for office in April, and we also ran for office.
And it was let's see, you went from a town board of 5
Mm-hmm.
to a village board of 7.
Yes.
And so when town members ran as village candidates,
Mhm.
then Salem had a number of people.
Right.
On
We
the
were at
village
around
board.
12,000 people, and Silver Lake was only in the 2,000s. So, but two members continued and got on. I think perhaps that was because they had another year. Maybe that's why. They had another year, so they remained on, which I was very grateful for that, because I didn't want it to be a Silver Lake Salem issue. I didn't want to overpower Silver Lake or anything, and I don't think any of us did. None of the board did. We just wanted to get along and make it cohesive, and everybody have the same rights and everybody have the same privileges.
Okay. So as the town became a village, how did that change the direction or how things were planned or worked on or decided? Was there a big change?
It wasn't really a big change. There are some different regulations statewide and whatnot, but like the annual meeting and things of sort, we didn't have to have an annual meeting where we had to have one for the town. But technically it was smooth, and there wasn't a whole different transition. You know, it was kind of nice having 7 people up there, because you just get 2 more opinions, and because there's some big decisions that we're making, and it's the more the better.
Can you think of a couple of those such decisions?
Well, anything like people developing a subdivision, the industrial park. That was a biggie. That was big for us. We had tried that for a long time, and we finally got an industrial park, and it's almost full, and I think it is full. It's doing great. We brought some resident jobs. That was a biggie. It wasn't like, okay, we buy this plot of land, and there's a lot of recruiting, getting businesses to come over, and we actually did, and a lot of that was our administrator and some of our administration people at the village. But then the board and subdivisions, whether you want the 5 acres like Brighton has, or do you want 1 acre, do you want half acres, what kind of housing do we want, things of that nature that affect people. Big
Were there
decisions.
some changes from what the town had in place to what the village now had in place for acreage for
No.
subdivision?
No, it was all depending on what somebody came to with the comprehensive plan, and that was a good thing too, because we had the comprehensive plan in place before we became a village, and I'm just transferred over basically.
Okay. And you mentioned that you had served as village president until just the 2023 April election.
Mm-hmm.
And why was that the end of your service as a village
Well, it wasn't
member?
my intention.
No?
It wasn't my intention, but there was 4 of us that were up for election, and all 4 of us lost the election.
Were there issues that kind of set up those 4 people
There
to be
was.
challenged?
There was a couple business owners in the village who will remain nameless, but they had fire inspection issues, they had certified survey map issues, and they just kept going and going and going and going, and then they, in my opinion, it's my opinion, they got these 4 candidates to run against the 4 of us. There was 3 trustees and myself, the president, and they all took our place, all 4 of us, and that's a rarity. It shows, in my opinion, to the general public who isn't knowledgeable that they must have been bad. You know, they all got out, they were all voted out, but I disagree with that 100%. They try to dig up some things that weren't true. The campaigning was, some of it was actually even unethical, and definitely some illegal little things about putting names on signs and whatnot, but we lost.
So was it more of a campaign of personal attack, or was it a campaign of, well, these kind of issues should be easier to solve than this dealing with fire inspection stuff and zoning
I think the
issues?
latter.
So they just thought,
I mean,
should be
there's
able to deal with this outside of the ordinances, so to speak, and just,
yes.
okay.
And why was it taking so long? After we told some of the business owners they needed to do such and such, and they didn't, you know, correspond, and they didn't like it, and so they started getting these people interested, because not one of the people that got on has ever been in office.
That makes for an interesting
Yeah.
moving forward with.
It was good
not
that we
much
had 3 other members that were still there to help them out.
So this campaign got nasty?
It got nasty. It did.
Never-
It got nasty.
You never saw that kind of campaign
Ever.
in your 30
Never.
years before?
No, we didn't even. We gave up. You know, they started in December, and I mean, they had signs out there, and they're all the same signs and whatnot. And a lot of it got personal. I fortunately didn't have anything personal brought up against me, but because I was president, I was involved.
Was there harassment type of things, or was
Oh,
it
there was
just-
some harassment. There was definitely harassment and slander, and yeah, it was draining. It was draining because it was a little over. Well, it was about almost 6 months, and it wasn't fair. I mean, these people are serving the community, and you chastise them for like what their kid did or any. It got a little crazy. So, we'll leave it
So
at
looking back on that, had you won that election, what would your future have been as a village public official? I mean, was
that. With
this,
a mixed board then.
what
of
was you
people?
going? Were you, you're 30 years already. If you had won that election, did you see yourself as being village president for?
I would have ran. My intention was to one more term,
Okay.
and I wish it would have happened because nobody likes to lose, but there were some things that I still wanted to see through. I wanted to finish up the industrial park. I wanted to make sure the road pavement was on schedule, and I felt that I had some oomph left, and I wanted to continue. But I think it would have been my last term had I won.
Okay.
But now I'm done.
So, do you have any regrets today?
I have no regrets on what I've done. I have no regrets on what I've done. I think that we were a great board. We did work together. We agreed to disagree, and no, I don't have any regrets.
Are you still interested in local politics?
I'm interested, but I don't want to be involved.
So what do you like about not being village president anymore?
The free time, I think. I'm at that age now where I'm starting to slow down. And it's nice to be home with my husband at night, even though we only met 2 or 3 times a month. But the phone calls, the emails, that's when I would take care of it after my real job.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like I live in a glass house anymore. That's kind of nice. But I still miss it. I mean, it's only been April, so I still miss it. It's 31 years is a long time. Yeah.
So how do you see the future of the village of Salem Lakes today?
I think it's going to progress just fine. I think we got a good base for this new board to work with, and I think we're going to be fine. I hope they keep the tax rate down. I hope they are encouraging businesses, which they said we didn't, but we always have. We always have encouraged businesses. I think it'll be fine. I think people need to watch what's going on and get involved. That would be good. Don't just let something pass, because people can change things. You come to a meeting and people should be hearing you. You know, I always told that to people too. Like, if you have an item on the agenda and you don't show up, chances are they might, just whatever. But if you're there and you show interest and you state your case, I said people tend to listen a little more. So I think people should get involved. I think that it will be okay. I really do. We got good workers, The board doesn't do everything. We got some really good workers. The girls in the office, our highway and sewer department, they're great. They're great, and they're dedicated, and most of them have been there a long time, pretty long time. Clerk, we have to appoint a clerk. We just got a new administrator, so hopefully she'll bring some new light to the village, and I think we'll be fine. I'm hoping we will.
Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.